Shocking accident caught on body camera in Atlanta. A police officer working on the side of a highway during a traffic accident turned his back on the road for a second, and another car lost control and hit him. Atlanta police are using this as an opportunity to remind drivers about the state's move over law, which requires drivers to move over a lane when emergency vehicles are stopped. The injured officer is recovering tonight. A major step from the FDA authorizing boosters for millions more Americans, giving a green light for third shots to some people who received Moderna and second shots for those who received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The FDA is also allowing for mix and match booster shots. So who exactly is eligible for the new shots, and what must still happen for them to get into arms? And what we're learning tonight about that new variant that is a descendant of the Delta variant first identified in the UK. The major development in the case that has made national headlines, the murder of Gabby Petito. The FBI says it has found what appears to be human remains and personal items in the search area for Brian Laundrie inside a nature preserve. Laundrie was a person of interest in this case. Tonight, major news from the NFL. The league and the players have agreed to change its $1 billion concussion settlement, altering the way claims for compensation are evaluated. Earlier this year, the league pledged to end the use of race norming, a controversial practice used in evaluating cognitive test scores. Tonight, Democrats are working out an infrastructure compromise. We're joined by a Democrat who was in the room with President Biden trying to get this deal across the finish line.
And we have to pass this if we want to have a good chance in the election.
Paris Hilton is opening up tonight and demanding action from Congress and the Biden administration against what she calls the troubled teen industry.
Those 11 months continue to have an effect on who you were, who you became.
It was so traumatic that I didn't even want to think it was real. So I made a promise to myself that I was never going to think about it, speak about it, tell anyone ever again. Because that's what these places do. They really instill shame in you.
We are jamming with one of the best drummers in the world, and nearly 37 years after the car accident that almost ended Rick Allen's life and cost him an arm, tonight the resilient deaf Leppard drummer is quite literally marching to the beat of his own drum, giving back and pushing through great pain and loss to try to inspire.
If you could go back into that hospital room and tell the 21-year-old version of yourself one thing that would help him get through the rest of the hospital stay, what would it be?
Looking forward to hearing that answer. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. We begin tonight with the move by the FDA that could pave the way for millions of additional Americans to get a third booster shot. Late today, the FDA authorized booster shots for those who took the Moderna and J&J vaccines, but with some caveats. Regulators are also paving the way for mixing and matching boosters, and now the CDC must weigh in. And the CDC director has to formally make a recommendation before these boosters can be administered. Meantime, the White House is pushing ahead today with preparations to vaccinate children between the ages of 5 and 11. The moment regulators give the green light, officials want states to be ready. It could be as soon as 2 weeks. As of today, state officials are able to pre-order doses of Pfizer's vaccines for children. But how children receive the doses will be different than the strategy for adults. Our Whit Johnson leads us off on this busy Wednesday night.
Tonight, the FDA officially authorizing booster shots for Moderna and Johnson & Johnson and allowing Americans to mix and match any of the 3 vaccines as a booster. The Moderna booster for the same population as Pfizer after 6 months for people 65 and older and those at high risk due to health or where they work. J&J boosters after 2 months for anyone over 18. And that green light for people who want to boost with a different brand of vaccine.
What people are seeing with our mix and match study is also that if you boost with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the numbers didn't come out quite as high as if you boosted with an mRNA vaccine like the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine.
One study suggesting giving J&J recipients a different vaccine booster could produce higher antibody levels. In Illinois, music teacher Susan McCarsky got the Johnson & Johnson one shot. She cares for an elderly parent and a grandchild, another reason she's eager to get her booster.
The Moderna or Pfizer might be a better response, and Moderna was slightly even higher than Pfizer. Either one would probably be okay with me, but why not get the best if it's available?
And tonight, the White House rolling out its plan to get the Pfizer vaccine to 28 million children ages 5 to 11, starting in early November.
Should the FDA and CDC authorize the vaccine, we will be ready to get shots in arms.
Once regulators sign off, millions of doses will ship out to 25,000 doctors' offices, tens of thousands of pharmacies, community and school clinics. The goal, to make getting a vaccine shot easy and convenient for families.
A lot of parents always are a little extra careful about their children and want to turn to their trusted voices, pediatricians among them. And so the White House is working with pediatricians, among others, to make sure that these vaccines are available where parents want them.
You ready? She's going to count for me, okay? 2, 3.
The dose for younger children will be a third of the amount given to adults. To make it easier for doctors and providers, the vaccine packaging will come with smaller needles and include color-coded caps on the vials, purple for those 12 and older, orange caps for kids 5 to 11.
If we can get the overwhelming majority of those 28 million children vaccinated, I think that would play a major role in diminishing the spread of infection in the community.
Whit Johnson joins us now. Whit, on the authorization for boosters the FDA approved today, what's the next step in the process? And what about reports that we heard today that boosters could soon be extended to all Americans 40 and older?
Lindsay, that CDC advisory panel will vote on recommendations for boosters tomorrow, and then the CDC director will give the final sign-off. Millions more Americans could be eligible by this weekend. As you noted there are also reports that the FDA is considering booster shots for anyone 40 and older, but that likely won't be addressed until next month. Lindsay?
Still a wait and see there. Whit Johnson, our thanks to you. And for more on this now, we bring in Dr. Julie Morita, Executive Vice President of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. She was also a member of President-elect Biden's COVID advisory panel. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you coming on the show again. Let's start with vaccines for children. Is this shot appropriate for pretty much all children, or are there some kids who you would say you might hold off or hesitate on giving them the shot?
Yeah, so I think, Lindsay, what we've seen today is that the FDA, the White House has kind of revealed what their plan is for rolling out the vaccine if the FDA approves it, and also if the CDC recommends it. And so what we'll see next week is the FDA will consider the data, and we'll see if it's actually approved for emergency use for children. What we're looking at is the age of 5 to 11 years of age. After FDA makes a recommendation, if they approve it, then it will be CDC who will then advise regarding how to use it, and if there are certain groups who shouldn't get the vaccine or not. But that won't actually happen until the first week of November.
Understood. And as Whit reported, the children's vaccine will go not just to pharmacies, but to doctors' offices and even school clinics. Does that plan, that rollout, make sense to you?
Yeah, so as a pediatrician and also a former medical director for an immunization program in Chicago, we had this strong network in Chicago of healthcare providers who could deliver vaccines to children throughout this city, regardless of regardless of insurance status, regardless of where they live, their race, or their ethnicity. We had a full complement of providers who could do that. And that same system exists throughout the United States. So the key thing from my perspective is really building on that system and enhancing it. And so to see the pediatrician offices, family practice offices, community health centers, pharmacies, a whole range of places can provide the vaccines. That's critical for us to get kids vaccinated as quickly as we can.
And on that point, you've done certainly a lot of work on health equity. Does this distribution plan raise any potential concerns about equal access?
Well, what we've seen play out with prior vaccination efforts, this related to COVID, is that it hasn't been equally distributed or equally as accessible. And what this effort is right now is building on a system that really helps to make sure vaccine is accessible to all children. So really focusing on community health centers, federally qualified health centers, vaccine for children providers who actually provide vaccines to uninsured and underinsured children. But there also have to be efforts to make sure that parents are educated, that barriers to administration of vaccine are really eliminated. And so all those kinds of things really need to happen so we don't see inequities and we don't see disparities in vaccine coverage.
And lastly, there is yet another COVID variant that has emerged out of the UK. Some people are calling it Delta Plus. How concerned are you about that?
think we're fortunate that we have disease surveillance systems in place so that we can detect when these variants emerge. What we are seeing is really low levels of this variant that has emerged, and it's really important for us to watch and see, is this variant more transmissible? Does it cause more serious disease? And over time, we'll be able to have that information. But right now, what we've just detected is that it is present, and it's really important for us to keep a keen eye on what's happening with the variant.
Dr. Julie Morita, Executive Vice President of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Now to that major development in the Gabby Petito case, as what appears to be human remains have now been found at a nature reserve not far from the Florida home of Brian Laundrie, with items that belong to Laundrie found in the very same location. So what are authorities saying now as they work to identify those remains? ABC's Trevor Ault has the latest.
Tonight, a major discovery in the month-long search for Gabby Petito's boyfriend, Brian Laundrie.
Earlier today, investigators found what appears to be human remains, along with personal items, such as a backpack and notebook belonging to Brian Laundrie.
Investigators uncovering those remains and items in an area of Florida's Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park that was previously underwater. The FBI now working to determine if the remains are in fact human and if it's Brian Laundrie.
I know you have a lot of questions, but we don't have all the answers yet. We are working diligently to get those answers for you.
Today, the Sarasota medical examiner and a cadaver dog on the scene, along with Laundrie's parents. Their attorney saying the FBI and local police were informed last night of Chris and Roberta Laundrie's plan to help with the search this morning. And it was after a brief search off a trail Brian frequented that some articles belonging to Brian were found.
Gabby Petito never goes outside.
The Laundries reported Brian missing more than a month ago, September 17th, 2 days after he was named a person of interest in Gabby Petito's disappearance. This summer, the couple had been on a cross-country road trip, sharing their seemingly happy travels on social media.
Did he hit you though? I guess, yeah, but I hit him first.
But on August 12th, police body camera footage capturing the pair after an altercation in Moab, Utah. And on September 1st, Laundrie returned to his parents' Northport, Florida home without Petito. Her family reporting her missing September 11th.
We love her very much. We miss her and we want her to come home.
Neither Laundrie nor his parents spoke with authorities in the search for Petito. Her body found September 19th near Wyoming's Grand Teton National Park. The county coroner ruling she'd been murdered weeks prior.
We find the cause and manner to be death by strangulation, and manner is homicide.
Trevor Ault joins us now. And Trevor, the FBI did not take any questions at that presser today. But have officials given any indication at all as far as a timeline, as far as identifying these remains?
Not so far, at least not from the medical examiner, Lindsay, though the FBI has said that they're expecting to be out at this park for at least the next several days as they continue to search for more evidence here. I can tell you for reference that it took 2 days to confirm that Gabby Petito had been found, though in that instance, the body matched Gabby Petito's description. In contrast, here, they're not even certain yet that the remains that they found are human, and every step of the way the authorities have been methodical and not rushed in this investigation. I would anticipate we're going to see more of the same here, Lindsay.
Sounds like it. Okay, Trevor Ault, thanks to you. Now to an agonizing day in a Florida courtroom. Parkland shooter Nicholas Cruz took responsibility for the worst school shooting in U.S. history, pleading guilty to 17 counts of murder. He told the heartbroken parents of those children that he wished that he hadn't done it. So will he get the death penalty? Here's ABC's Victor Oquendo.
Standing before the judge, the Parkland school shooter listened as every victim's name was read, every count listed, and made his plea.
Count 16, murder in the first degree of Jamie Gutenberg. How do you wish to plead?
Guilty.
Count 17, murder in the first degree of Peter Wang. How do you wish to plead?
Guilty.
Anguished families of the victims wiping away tears. Then Nicholas Cruz spoke directly to them for the first time.
I am very sorry for what I did, and I have to live with it every day. And that if I were to get a second chance, I will do everything in my power to try to help others. And I am doing this for you, and I do not care if you do not believe me. And I love you, and I know you don't believe me, but I have to live with this every day.
Gina Rose Montalto, just 14 years old when she was killed in the shooting. Her father, Tony, says watching Cruz speak was painful.
Was probably the most uncomfortable thing, well, second most uncomfortable thing we've ever had to do. First one would be hugging our daughter's lifeless body.
Prosecutors then laid out their case that on Valentine's Day in 2018, Cruz, armed with an AR-15 rifle, took an Uber to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School just as classes were letting out. Parents listening as they recounted the 17 murders in gruesome detail.
Luke Hoyer, 15 years old, was shot twice, and he died of his wounds.
Luke's mom, Gina, reliving the pain of the loss of her son.
We miss him dearly. He should be here today, and we're just still in shock. We're glad today has come this way, and we're hoping for accountability of the death penalty.
The family anticipating the death penalty. Victor Oquendo joins us now. And Victor, Cruz could get the death penalty for what he's done. What are the next steps here?
Lindsay, next comes the penalty phase for Nicholas Cruz beginning in January. Thousands of potential jurors will be screened until it's down to 12 who will ultimately decide his fate, whether he gets life in prison or the death penalty. Death would have to be unanimous. Lindsay?
Victor, thank you. We turn now to Washington and the ongoing negotiations over spending there. President Biden is working to try to bring Democrats together on a final deal. The price tag now likely will be slashed down from $3.5 trillion to less than $2 trillion in order to get Senate moderates on board. So what's out and what's still being considered? Here's ABC's congressional correspondent, Rachel Scott.
Tonight, with pressure mounting to reach a deal, the president traveling to Pennsylvania to sell his domestic agenda.
This has been declared dead on arrival from the moment I introduced it. But I think we're going to surprise them because I think people are beginning to figure out what's at stake.
The president holding marathon meetings with progressives, then moderates. The White House says the window for finalizing a package is closing.
Everyone is going to have to compromise if we're going to find that legislative sweet spot we can all get behind. Nobody will get everything they want.
Sources tell us the president told progressives the price tag has to drop from $3.5 trillion to just under $2 trillion. And to get the bill across the finish line, sacrifices would need to be made. The bill would still cover funding for child care, elder care, universal pre-K, and Medicare expansion for vision and hearing. But paid family leave may be less than what the president wanted. 4 weeks instead of 12. And the $300 monthly child tax credit may only be extended for 1 more year.
Is that enough to you?
As far as I'm concerned, a 1-year expansion is a death sentence for the child tax credit. I see it as a grave miscalculation.
We're told the president also informed members a plan for tuition-free community college would likely be dropped from the final package, a key Democratic priority championed by the First Lady. She spoke with Robin Roberts today.
And I don't have to tell you that some people are concerned with the social spending bill that is being reported that free tuition at community college may have to be taken out of the bill. For families that were hoping for that,
I know.
What would you say to them?
I would say we're not giving up. We are not giving up. This is round 1. This is year 1. I'm going to keep going. So that there's hope because we're going to get this done.
The First Lady committed to keep on pushing on that issue. Rachel Scott joins us now from the Capitol. Rachel, the president expressing optimism on getting this across the finish line, and he's been taking his message on the road.
Yes, Lindsay, the strategy by the president here is twofold. One, he wants his party to remain united on this, to get this deal across the finish line, but also he wants to educate the American people about what is actually in this package. Obviously, this comes after polling has showed that many Americans actually don't know what the Democratic priorities are that are listed in this massive, nearly $2 trillion package. So the president trying to sell the American people on his agenda and then have lawmakers here get it through.
And meanwhile, the administration has really hit a roadblock on efforts to get any meaningful voting rights legislation passed, a vote failing in the Senate today. And you caught up with the vice president about that today. Let's take a listen.
Madam Vice President, what options do Democrats have left on voting rights? It's clear that Republicans are not going to support this.
Well, let's start with what just happened, which is the United States Senate and members of the United States Senate had an opportunity to uphold the importance of every American's right to exercise their fundamental right in a democracy, which is the right to vote. And when presented with this opportunity, the Democrats unanimously upheld the importance of that right, and the Republicans, sadly, unanimously failed to do so. So we're not going to give up. We're not deterred, but there's still a lot of work to do.
Vice President clearly disappointed there. Rachel, what are the next steps at this point?
Yeah, well, you heard the Vice President, Lindsay. She says they are not deterred by this. We heard from the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. He says failure on this issue is not an option. So Democrats do plan to bring another bill to the floor named after the late John Lewis as early as next week. But the bottom line here is they still need the support of at least 10 Republicans to move forward. They just do not have it. Meanwhile, across the country, at least 19 states have passed laws that make it tougher for Americans to vote, Lindsay.
Rachel Scott, our thanks to you. For more on the state of negotiations, we're joined now by Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna of California. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Congressman. You were, of course, part of the progressive group that met with President Biden at the White House yesterday. The White House called the meetings constructive. So did the president. He expressed urgency as far as getting to a final agreement before he heads overseas next week. And is that timeline realistic, would you say, given where the talks are right now?
Lindsay, we have to meet that timeline. The president spoke about the need for him to go to Glasgow with some deliverables. The American leadership is at stake. Our leadership on climate is at stake. He looked at each of us in the eye and he said, I need this. He appealed to our patriotism. I believe the House will deliver and the Senate will deliver.
And let's talk numbers here. Are progressives now willing to accept that this final package will be somewhere between $1.25 and $2 trillion? Can House Democrats even sign on to that level if the spending is put on priorities that you can all agree on?
Lindsay, it's still ongoing negotiations. I don't want to give a specific number, but I will say that the House progressives recognize that there will be significant cuts, that many of these programs aren't going to be 10 years, and that we have to compromise. And the reality is we have to have a plan that Senator Sinema, Senator Manchin can sign on to, because it takes 51 votes in the Senate. That reality is very clear.
Are progressives willing to bend on issues like leaving out funding for tuition-free community college, scaling back paid family leave from 12 weeks to 4 weeks, and also expanding the child tax credit for just 1 year? Would you say that there are red lines that you can't agree on?
One of the red lines is climate, but on paid family leave, I don't think 4 weeks is enough. I think anyone who knows someone who has been pregnant will tell you that 4 weeks isn't enough. So we're pushing back to say, let's have something more realistic, even if we have to have less years. On the child tax credit, what is most important is that we don't means test that beyond the American Rescue Plan. But the big issue for progressives is climate. We need to make sure that we have 50% reduction by 2030. That's the president's goal. That's his commitment. We have to send him to Glasgow with a plan that will achieve that, especially given that the Europeans and the Chinese are going to be coming there with their plan.
And today, your colleague, Congressman Richie Torres, called expanding the child tax credit for just 1 year a, quote, death sentence for the program. Would you agree?
I wouldn't say it's a death sentence. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Richie Torres. You know, he's the product of public housing, so this is deeply personal for him. His concern is that we don't have a single Republican vote. What happens if the Democrats aren't in charge? I do believe that once we have the program, there will be so much popular support for it that Republicans will find it hard to repeal. But I understand his concern. I mean, he is right to say that it should be for longer, but we're in a situation where we have to get 51 Senate votes.
So would you say that the goal for you is to fund more programs for a short period of time and then hope that they get extended again down the road?
Yes, not just my goal. I think that's the president's approach. If you look at what's in this bill, it has every American is going to get preschool. That's a big deal. We're going to have child care for every family. You're going to have this child allowance for working class and middle class families. Seniors are going to get dental, hearing, vision, and we're going to have massive investments in climate and renewable energy and new jobs. So there's a lot of good things in the bill, which is why progressives are willing to compromise, because we want these investments for the working class.
But can enough Democrats agree on that kind of framework?
I think so. And I'll tell you why. I've been skeptical in the past, but this time I saw the president is so deeply engaged. He's committed to this. He wants this done. He was going through line item by line item, the numbers. He is committed to getting the 2 holdout senators on board, and he's committed to hearing our concerns and striking a compromise. And I have confidence in him, given how engaged he now is.
But would you say that that kind of approach is dangerous, though, if Republicans take over the House or Senate next year?
Well, first, I don't think that the Republicans will take it over.
Of course not.
And we have to pass this if we want to have a good chance in the election. But if they do take over, the history shows that they often don't repeal things that Democrats put in. We put in Social Security, we put in Medicare, they're often opposed to that. We put in the Affordable Care Act, they were opposed to it. But then they find it's very hard to repeal because people actually like these programs. I acknowledge it's a gamble. It's better to have it for the long term. But our hope is that once you plant the idea, the principle, that they will be very hard to repeal.
Okay, so lastly, let's talk about what you call that red line, that biggest sticking point, that's the climate change, basically. Is there any solution in sight that both House progressives and Senator Manchin, who represents a coal state, can agree on when it comes to clean energy provisions to cut back on carbon emissions?
Yes, I think we're exploring that. First, I believe we need to guarantee high-paid, good jobs in West Virginia. Let's say 100,000 of those jobs should be in West Virginia, because those communities have been hard hit. Mining families have been hard hit. They don't want a handout. They want real proof of the jobs, and we should do that. But we're looking at things like state block grants and incentives for states to hit renewable goals, things that are flexible that hopefully Senator Manchin also will see as in the interest of the planet, our country, and his state.
Congressman Ro Khanna, we thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you coming on the show.
I really appreciate you having me on.
And when we come back, the NFL agrees to a massive settlement that will alter the way claims for concussions are made. What we know. Our emotional and inspirational conversation with deaf Leppard drummer Rick Allen. He lost an arm in a horrific accident that did not stop him from making music, and it certainly did not stop him from making a difference. But up next, Paris Hilton draws from her own personal history and goes to Washington to push lawmakers to take action. We'll explain right after the break.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back. We're surrounded by people squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run. Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you?
How cute.
Yes.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out now.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 12 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
This is American history. A violent white mob, a brutal attack, 300 black Americans killed right here in America. Now, it is time to uncover Tulsa's buried truth. The gripping story brought to light in a new podcast from ABC News. Available now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
Sex, gambling, fraud, betrayal, and murder. Cutthroat Inc., the podcast. A family on a mission to find their son. A year's worth of conversations with the killer. Cutthroat Inc. Subscribe for free now on your favorite podcast app. Assault on the Capitol, the ABC News original, exclusively on Hulu, now streaming. Now with so much on the line, more Americans are turning to David Muir and ABC's World News Tonight than any other program across all of television.
Take a look at this. An Egyptian thief stealing a phone from a journalist during a live stream report and then giving himself away to authorities. He really had to. That's because it continued to record as he tried to get away, as tens of thousands of people were watching. Egyptian officials were later able to take him into custody a short time later. And now to Paris Hilton. She was on Capitol Hill today to fight what she calls the troubled teen industry after saying that she herself was abused at a boarding school. ABC's Kaylee Hartung sat down with her and filed this report.
Enough is enough. I'm no longer going to be silent.
After 2 decades of silence, shame, and nightmares, Paris Hilton is on a mission to protect children from abuse and taking a powerful message to Washington.
Children deserve to be treated like human beings. These kids are treated worse than someone would be in prison. It's horrifying.
And that's what you endured, something worse than prison.
Worse than, it's literal hell on earth.
Hilton meeting today with lawmakers, calling for reform and accountability.
Hello.
Pleasure to meet you. Thank you
so much for everything.
Yeah, you bet.
During a press conference with other survivors, Hilton echoing comments made in a Washington Post op-ed Monday.
At Provo Canyon School in Utah, I was given clothes with a number on the tag. I was no longer me. I was only number 127.
In her 2020 YouTube documentary, This is Paris, the entrepreneur and original influencer came forward with allegations that she was abused as a teenager while attending boarding school in Utah.
I started remembering who I was before. It makes me sad they took that away.
Can you describe what you experienced at Provo Canyon School?
It was the most painful and traumatic experience of my life. Just every day wishing that I would wake up from this nightmare, being physically abused, yelled at, restrained, locked in rooms, forced medication, being watched by male staff while I would take a shower. I had basically no human rights.
Those 11 months continued to have an effect on who you were, who you became.
It was so traumatic that I didn't even want to think it was real. So I made a promise to myself that I was never going to think about it, speak about it, tell anyone ever again, because that's what these places do. They really instill shame in you. But being an adult now, I realize that I'm not the one who should be ashamed. It's the people who work at these places and run these places that are ones who should be ashamed and in prison for what they do to children.
Provo Canyon School in Utah is still operating today. When ABC News reached out for comment on Paris Hilton's accusations, it replied with the same media release it posts on its website, which says in part, Provo Canyon School was sold by its previous ownership in August 2000. We therefore cannot comment on the operations or student experience prior to that time. Paris Hilton attended the school in 1998. They say they do not condone or promote any form of abuse. Since speaking out, Paris says she's received thousands of letters and talked to hundreds of survivors.
The stories that I hear are identical to what I've experienced. And there are thousands of these facilities, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
12-year-old Uvea Speza-Lopin is one of those survivors. She says she was abused at a facility in Montana.
It's empowering. It's knowing that I'm not the only one who's been through this and people understand. Because all my life I've been struggling with the fact of thinking that people don't understand, people don't care. But it's just nice to have people on my side.
They want private boarding schools and other youth treatment facilities that promise to treat troubled teens regulated.
There needs to be oversight, regulations, accountability, transparency.
I see that shut down Provo sign just behind you. That school is still running. What is your message to the people who hurt you?
I actually had another sign during that rally. The children that you abuse today will take you down tomorrow. And that's what we're going to do.
The Accountability for Congregate Care Act has yet to be introduced into Congress, but the Democrats planning on bringing the bill to Capitol Hill hope for bipartisan support.
This is a bill we need to pass, and we need to pass it in the House and the Senate in a bipartisan way to have basic rights for America's kids who get sent to these facilities so that they are treated with dignity and respect.
The hotel heiress has already helped change laws in 5 states and Northern Ireland and vows this is just the beginning.
State protection is not enough. These kids need to be protected on a federal level in all 50 states. I won't stop till I see change.
You've been in the spotlight for more than 2 decades.
Yeah.
You've had a platform. How does it feel to use your platform in this way?
I feel that I've done a lot of things in my career that I'm proud of, but doing this is the thing that I am most proud of, and this is what I want my legacy to be. I just know that the little girl in me would be so proud of the woman I am today.
Kaylee Hartung, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Our thanks to Kaylee for that. And still ahead here on Prime, the growing wedding dress shortage that has some brides-to-be very concerned. The kid who tried to take something from the Pope. It's an interesting story coming up. And with several consequential cases being put in front of the Supreme Court, what do we know about the justices? We take a look by the numbers. But first, our tweet of the day. Trans actor Elliot Page says he's with the employees at Netflix that walked out due to the uproar from jokes that Dave Chappelle made in his latest comedy special.
It was an extraordinary story. A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new hunt wherever you get your podcast.
World News Now.
And America This Morning.
The best new video.
The breaking news overnight.
Emergency crews called to the town of Surfside.
U.S. airstrikes hitting targets in Iraq and Syria.
The stories people are talking about.
If you don't want to shave your legs, don't. I was gonna say,
oh my. Got it.
And what to expect in the day ahead.
ABC World News Now and America This Morning.
Starting at 2 a.m. Eastern.
Up all night to keep you up to date.
Right now, with so much at stake, Sunday mornings, this is the place. Taking on all the tough questions, straightforward reporting, no spin, no hype, no bull. See why Sunday mornings, more and more Americans are now turning first to ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos.
Welcome to This Week.
Let's do this! When you wake up in the morning, in the morning, darling, I'll be by your side. I'll be there by your side. I'll be everything you wanted. I'll be there by your side. If you need a light to shine it, hold up your hand, let the stars shoot again. Let the light shine in through the dark.
Good morning, America.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people squeezing into this
bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
Welcome back, everyone. And now to the U.S. Supreme Court, which is poised to rule on some of the most consequential cases that we've seen in years, among them abortion and gun rights. Here's a breakdown by the numbers. 6 conservative and 3 liberal justices. That's the current makeup of the High Court, including 3 justices appointed by President Trump. The court has not been this ideologically tilted in almost 100 years, according to an analysis by our partners at 538. Last term, 60% of all decisions went in a conservative direction, including 59% of the close decisions. The previous term was the most conservative since 2008, but experts predict a further lurch to the right this year, particularly as we see it take up more conservative cases. And there's another major shift as well. For decades, there's been just one justice in the ideological middle, so often the swing vote on close decisions. That was Chief Justice John Roberts, and before him, Justice Anthony Kennedy. But now there are 3 justices in the middle of this very right-leaning court: Roberts and Trump appointees Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett. This trio will likely decide some of the most important legal issues of our time. And we still have lots to get to here on Prime tonight. The groundbreaking transplant involving pigs. Could it help solve the issue of organ shortages? And music star J Balvin is taking a lot of heat over his latest music video. But first, a look at our top trending stories on abcnews.com.
extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive? Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new Hunt wherever you get your podcast.
The most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
Now streaming on ABC News Live 2020. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues. The Hunt. True crime 2020. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you? Yes.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 12 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
The vaccine and booster campaign in America drastically expanding this week. The FDA authorizing Moderna and Johnson & Johnson's vaccine booster for emergency use and allowing the mixing and matching of vaccines. Next, a CDC advisory committee will vote on the matter tomorrow, and then Dr. Rochelle Walensky will sign off. The Biden administration also unveiling its plan for the rollout of vaccines for children ages 5 to 11, ahead of the FDA's anticipated approval.
We have secured vaccine supply to vaccinate every child ages 5 through 11. And as soon as the vaccine is authorized by the FDA, we will begin shipping millions of doses nationwide.
Wedding gowns!
These dresses were ordered in January.
There's an issue. We're time sensitive.
The reason for the delay? Disruptions in the global supply chain. Many wedding dresses are made in China, and they are among the goods that can't be unloaded at American ports. Lindsay Merlot was sent the wrong colored dress, and a reorder only got to her with days to spare before her wedding.
One little mistake can happen, and it can just really change your timeline. Get the dress.
In addition to shipping delays, each dress has to be altered after it arrives. With more weddings pushed back due to the pandemic, alterations are taking longer too. The bottom line, brides-to-be with a July 2022 date or sooner may want to consider buying off the rack.
In a medical first, surgeons in New York have successfully implanted a kidney that was grown in a pig into a person.
The kidney functioned perfectly.
The pig was genetically engineered to allow it to grow an organ that would not be rejected by the human body. Researchers say, though, there's a lot of work to be done to learn about the long-term consequences.
Really provides, new hope that we'll have a sustainable, unlimited supply of organs.
In Florida, the FBI says they found human remains along with personal items, including a backpack and notebook belonging to Brian Laundrie.
It's likely the team will be on scene for several days.
Police have been searching this reserve for more than a month because that's where Brian's parents say he went back on September 13th. Police have maintained a search presence in the park ever since for this exact reason, because the water flows in and out of that area routinely in heavily swampy areas. His parents told the FBI they wanted to go into the reserve to look for him. The attorney for Chris and Roberta Laundrie say they contacted the FBI last night and said they wanted to go in there today.
I can't say for certain that Chris showed this particular area to police at that point in time, but I can say that this is an area that we initially notified the FBI that Brian liked to hike in.
The little boy stole the show at the Vatican today when he interrupted the Pope's weekly audience by just charming the Holy Father. The boy simply smiled at the pontiff and then took him by the hand. The boy then even tried to remove the Pope's cap. The pontiff didn't seem fazed by any of it. He just enjoyed it, let it go, and the boy ended up sitting right next to the Pope Francis at one point. The crowd watching the scene, you could hear him in the distance applauding several times.
J Balvin's controversial music video to his song Perra has now been removed from YouTube. The video Perra, which means female dog, doubles down on the suggestive imagery, showing the reggaeton artist with two black women on leashes made to look like dogs. Meanwhile, the song's featured artist, Tokisha, is seen posing on all fours inside a doghouse. It's unclear if the video was voluntarily removed or taken down. This comes less than a week after Colombia's Vice President and Chancellor, Marta Lucía Ramírez, said the visuals were sexist, racist, machista, and misogynistic. So far, no comment from the artists.
Welcome back, everyone. Now to that major news from the NFL as the league files proposed changes to its $1 billion concussion settlement, ending its race-norming cognitive test score adjustment that made it harder for retired black players to receive funds. ABC's Janae Norman has the details on the proposal.
Tonight, the NFL and its former players have reached an agreement to change the way concussion claims are evaluated. The new terms meant to be filed under seal, but ABC News learning that in that 46-page document, the NFL and other parties state that no race norms or demographic estimates, whether black or white, shall be used in the settlement program going forward. In June, the NFL pledging to end the use of the controversial practice of race norming, a neuropsychological tool that when used in these cases assumes black players start at a lower cognitive level than white players, often making it harder, critics claim, for black former players and their families to qualify for compensation for head injuries sustained during their careers. Today's news coming after an ABC News investigation uncovered emails from several clinicians who evaluated players saying they felt pressured to apply race-based adjustments to former players' cognitive test scores that, quote, bottom line, do discriminate against black players. The prominent attorney who negotiated the landmark settlement in 2013 later apologizing to his own clients in an exclusive interview.
I was wrong. I'm really sorry that anybody, any client of mine in this program has been made to feel that way. That was a big mistake. It was a failure of the system.
Two black former players, Kevin Henry and Najee Davenport, filed suit against the NFL last year, accusing the league of avoiding paying head injury claims based on a formula that discriminates on the basis of race. That suit was eventually dismissed, but not before the judge ordered the NFL and attorneys for former players into mediation to address the concerns raised about race norming.
I'm banged up. I'm beat up. And the part that you don't see is up here. You don't see how my brain is beat up. They don't hit me less or harder because I'm black.
A spokesperson for the NFL stating this summer that while they are committed to eliminating race-based norms in the program and more broadly in the neuropsychological community, there is no merit to the claim of discrimination.
And Lindsay, the settlement agreement stating the league will automatically rescore all eligible tests of retired players for whom those race-based norms were applied. That could mean millions of dollars of additional payouts to former NFL players and their families. Lindsay.
Janae, thank you. Next tonight, he's one of the best drummers in the world. But for Rick Allen of Def Leppard, getting there took some incredible resilience after he lost an arm in a horrific car accident. We visited Rick and his family to reflect on his recovery and Def Leppard's success and learn how he's using his journey to help others. ABC's Phil Lipoff has his story.
For more than 40 years, Rick Allen has been the drummer of one of the best-selling rock bands of all time, with mega hits like Pour Some Sugar on Me. Def Leppard has sold more than 100 million records worldwide, all the money and fame that comes with it, and still, those who know Rick best will tell you that's not what's most impressive about him. And to really understand that, we need to go back to the 80s. Rick joined Def Leppard when he was just 15. By the time he was 21, the band was a huge success. Rick was on top of the world.
Hi, we're Def Leppard on MTV. Music television. 24 hours a day.
And then you buy a Corvette.
Yeah.
December 31st, 1984, an afternoon drive in that Corvette would change the course of Rick's life. The crash happened fast. It was a violent rollover.
A member of a British rock group is tonight fighting for his life in a Sheffield hospital.
As the car rolled, the seatbelt came undone, and the seatbelt took my arm as I was flying out through the car.
His right arm broken, his left arm gone. This picture taken of Rick the first day out of the hospital. It would be the first day of the rest of his life. Relearning how to do everything from water skiing and shooting pool to playing the drums with just one arm. The band stood by Rick, and when he was strong enough, Def Leppard went on recording and touring, releasing Hysteria with a chart-topping hit, Love Bites. The band's most successful album to date.
So this is where it all happens?
Today, with the band on a pandemic pause, we visited Rick and his wife Lauren at their California home. In their recording studio, Rick shows us his drum kit and how the technology allowed him to sound like he did before the crash. The foot pedals sort of mimic what your left arm would do.
Absolutely what it does. Instead of this being a snare drum, it would be, say, Tom 1. Just so, let's see, I'm playing, you know. So I can actually go here instead of having to reach all the way over here.
Playing, Rick says, is almost a meditative experience. He's happy on the drums. And on this day, happy to jam with a journalist.
That's great. I told you he's a real player.
Okay, that was cool. Right next to Rick's recording studio is his art studio.
Going close, and it's like, what is that?
Rick loved art as a child. He showed us this picture he made for his mom when he was 5. Now he paints a lot.
I started out with, you know, telephone boxes, and, you know, you see the buses here, and just all those iconic things that everybody associates with England or London. Yeah, it's a bit of a giveaway.
Rick paints from the heart. His youngest daughter on a swing, a butterfly off in the distance. There are spiritual pieces too, and other rock legends. His most recent, a tribute to late Rolling Stones drummer Charlie Watts. One of Rick's signatures, poignantly, his right hand.
I nearly lost this one as well. So for me, it's just a reminder of everything that I went through and everything that I put this poor old hand through on a daily basis.
Rick's art sold at Wentworth Gallery, owned by Christian O'Mahony.
The impact that he can have on people because of the similarity that he has with people that have suffered that type of trauma, he really sees it as a blessing.
Depending on the size of a piece, Christian says collectors are paying up to tens of thousands of dollars. Rick began donating part of the proceeds to the Wounded Warrior Project after a visit to Walter Reed Medical Center in 2006.
I was so taken by the whole thing, the whole visit, and how much people looked up to me and what I'd done. But then I saw what these guys were going through.
Just a very humble man, just wants to be a human amongst other humans, and
and see how he can help others.
Norby Lara fought for the country and felt immediately connected to Rick and Lauren.
It was really cool to be around someone who had been through something, very similar to myself, losing an arm, and still being able to smile.
Lauren is a singer, songwriter, and teacher. Rick says she's been helping him heal physically and emotionally since the day they met 20 years ago. Today, they run the nonprofit Raven Drum Foundation.
We collaborate with different nonprofits to be able to facilitate healing through programs and fundraising and concerts.
A focus on veterans with head trauma and PTSD. Both Rick still grapples with.
When I met Rick, he didn't know he had PTSD. and that was something he was really struggling with. It's something that we work on all the time to help build his resiliency.
That resiliency built on Rick and Lauren's shared passions for music and social justice. And in 2019, Def Leppard was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
He survived it and came out the other side stronger.
A minute-long standing ovation by rock royalty. Lauren in the crowd, both overwhelmed by emotion. If you could go back into that hospital room and tell the 21-year-old version of yourself one thing that would help him get through the rest of the hospital stay, what would it be?
Yeah.
Your heart. One thing people tell me who know you that they admire about you most is your heart, your spirit.
Thank you.
I appreciate you allowing us into your house. Yeah.
Sorry.
All these years later, Rick is still healing, still drumming and touring, working through the pain and emotion of that crash and all that followed. If you were given the chance to go back and not have that happen, would you?
That's a really good question. In many ways, I think it enabled me to grow in so many ways. It became a blessing, a responsibility to, to other people, to myself. And I think that has become a huge gift.
Phil Lipoff, ABC News, California.
What a journey and experience. Our thanks to Phil for that. And before we go tonight, the image of the day. These worshipers in an Israeli-occupied West Bank city holding a Torah scroll on the top of a mount in the area to mark the traditional pilgrimage that takes place during the holiday of Sukkot. That is our show for this hour. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thank you so much for streaming with us. Up in the next hour, we're staying on top of several things, including we'll check in with our team on the ground in Haiti about the latest on those kidnapped Americans. And our conversation with a space travel barrier breaker, Eileen Collins, the first woman to ever pilot a space shuttle. Stay with us.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people
squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
It was an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new hunt wherever you get your podcasts.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know.
Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
The ladies you love, the hottest topics happening now. There's only one place to find it all.
You guys are having the hard conversations. I love The View.
The most watched #1 daytime talk show is The View. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
When you wake up in the morning, when you wake up in the morning, darling, I'll be by your side. I'll be there by your side. I'll be everything you wanted. I'll be there by your side. If you need a light to shine in, hold out your hand, let the stars shoot again, let the light shine in through the dark.
Good morning, America.
More Americans choose ABC News, America's #1 news source.
Hi there, I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We're monitoring several developments here at ABC News at this hour. The Parkland killer apologized directly to the anguished families of the victims he took from them in an emotional day in a South Florida court. He pled guilty to 17 counts of murder, and the names of all of the lives he cut short on Valentine's Day back in 2018 were read aloud. Up next is the penalty phase, which will begin next year, where Cruz's fate, life in prison or the death penalty, will be decided. We're learning tonight about some type of coordinated attack on a U.S. base in Syria that is located near the Jordanian border. A U.S. official says there are no U.S. injuries or deaths as a result of the attack. And Netflix workers staged a company-wide walkout today protesting comments made by its CEO in support of comedian Dave Chappelle's new special, The Closer. LGBTQ activists say that Chappelle made anti-trans comments in it, and they are demanding better support for trans employees. Now to that major development in the Gabby Petito cases. What appears to be human remains have been found at a nature reserve not far from the Florida home of Brian Laundrie, with items that belong to Laundrie found in that same location. So what are authorities saying now as they work to identify those remains? ABC's Trevor Ault has the latest.
Tonight, a major discovery in the month-long search for Gabby Petito's boyfriend, Brian Laundrie.
Earlier today, investigators found what appears to be human remains, along with personal items, such as a backpack and notebook belonging to Brian Laundrie.
Investigators uncovering those remains and items in an area of Florida's Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park that was previously underwater. The FBI now working to determine if the remains are in fact human and if it's Brian Laundrie.
I know you have a lot of questions, but we don't have all the answers yet. We are working diligently to get those answers for you.
Today, the Sarasota medical examiner and a cadaver dog on the scene, along with Laundrie's parents. Their attorney saying the FBI and local police were informed last night of Chris and Roberta Laundrie's plan to help with the search this morning. And it was after a brief search off a trail Brian frequented that some articles belonging to Brian were found.
Gabby Petito never goes outside.
The Laundries reported Brian missing more than a month ago, September 17th, 2 days after he was named a person of interest in Gabby Petito's disappearance. This summer, the couple had been on a cross-country road trip, sharing their seemingly happy travels on social media.
Did he hit you, though? I guess, yeah, but I hit him first.
But on August 12th, police body camera footage capturing the pair after an altercation in Moab, Utah. And on September 1st, Laundrie returned to his parents' Northport, Florida home without Petito. Her family reporting her missing September 11th.
We love her very much. We miss her and we want her to come home.
Neither Laundrie nor his parents spoke with authorities in the search for Petito. Her body found September 19th near Wyoming's Grand Teton National Park. The county coroner ruling she'd been murdered weeks prior.
We find the cause and manner to be death by strangulation, and manner is homicide.
Our thanks to Trevor for that. And now to the latest on the pandemic, as the FDA has now authorized boosters for Moderna and Johnson & Johnson vaccines, while also approving mixing and matching booster shots as well. And the White House has rolled out its plan to get out millions of doses of vaccine for children 5 to 11 years old the moment they get the green light from regulators, which could come in the next 2 weeks. Here's ABC's Whit Johnson.
Tonight, the FDA officially authorizing booster shots for Moderna and Johnson & Johnson and allowing Americans to mix and match any of the 3 vaccines as a booster. The Moderna booster for the same population as Pfizer after 6 months for people 65 and older and those at high risk due to health or where they work. J&J boosters after 2 months for anyone over 18. And that green light for people who want to boost with a different brand of vaccine.
What people are seeing with our mix and match study is also that if you boost with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the numbers didn't come out quite as high as if you boosted with an mRNA vaccine like the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine.
One study suggesting giving J&J recipients a different vaccine booster could produce higher antibody levels. In Illinois, music teacher Susan McCarsky got the Johnson & Johnson 1 shot. She cares for an elderly parent and a grandchild, another reason she's eager to get her booster.
The Moderna or Pfizer might be a better response, and Moderna was slightly even higher than Pfizer. Either one would probably be okay with me, but why not get the best if it's available?
And tonight, the White House rolling out its plan to get the Pfizer vaccine to 28 million children ages 5 to 11, starting in early November.
Should the FDA and CDC authorize the vaccine, we will be ready to get shots in arms.
Once regulators sign off, millions of doses will ship out to 25,000 doctors' offices, tens of thousands of pharmacies, community and school clinics. The goal, to make getting a vaccine shot easy and convenient for families.
A lot of parents always are a little extra careful about their children and want to turn to their trusted voices, pediatricians among them. And so the White House is working with pediatricians, among others, to make sure that these vaccines are available where parents want them.
You ready? She's going to count for me, okay?
2, 3.
The dose for younger children will be a third of the amount given to adults. To make it easier for doctors and providers, the vaccine packaging will come with smaller needles and include color-coded caps on the vials, purple for those 12 and older, orange caps for kids 5 to 11.
If we can get the overwhelming majority of those 28 million children vaccinated, I think that would play a major role in diminishing the spread of infection in the community.
Our thanks to Whit Johnson. Now to Haiti, and day 5 in captivity for the 16 Americans and 1 Canadian kidnapped, including an 8-month-old baby. They are members of a Christian missionary group, and the violent gang who has them is now demanding $17 million in ransom. ABC's Marcus Moore is in Port-au-Prince for us again tonight. Marcus, any news in the effort to win their release?
Well, Lindsay, we know that U.S. and Haitian authorities right now are working together to negotiate their safe release of the 17 hostages, those men, women, and children. But with the sensitivity of the situation right now, we haven't been made privy to a lot of the details. But we do know that authorities think that the hostages are being held close to the city. And also the U.S. Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, saying that they are doing everything they can to secure that safe release. And Lindsay, also there's been a new statement from the Ohio-based Christian Aid Ministries saying that its members will be fasting and praying all day tomorrow that their loved ones will be released safely soon.
So many there turning now to their faith and really leaning into that. Marcus, as so many of us know, Haiti already had an incredibly turbulent summer, and now they're facing fuel shortages. How are the people there feeling about this latest spotlight now on their country?
Well, you know, this obviously is shocking to a lot of people because such a large number of people were kidnapped at the same time, and they have endured kidnappings here before, but nothing quite like this. And they know that the world is watching. But every person I talk to here in Port-au-Prince, I ask them about the current situation here, these kidnappings, and they say that this has been going on for a long time, and it's just been a part of life, and they really do want change. But there's not a lot of faith here in the government when you talk to people here on the streets. And so they do look to other countries like the U.S. And ask those countries for help. But certainly, Lindsay, this is not new for a lot of people. And you mentioned the fuel shortages. There's just a lot going on here. And this has always been a fragile place, and it appears to be even more so now.
Marcus, so appreciate you tracking all the details for us on the ground there in Haiti. Thank you so much. President Biden is in Scranton, Pennsylvania tonight to make a pitch for his domestic policy proposals. The trip comes after the White House offered to cut the price tag of the president's Build Back Better plan to try to win support from moderate Democrats. ABC's Elizabeth Schulze has the latest from Washington.
President Biden is making a public push for his economic agenda, suggesting Democrats are close to reaching a compromise on a scaled-back version of his signature spending package.
This has been declared dead on arrival from the moment I introduced it. But I think we're going to surprise them, because I think people are beginning to figure out what's at stake.
Sources tell ABC News President Biden is offering concessions to get all members of his party on board. They include dropping tuition-free community college, extending the child tax credit for 1 year instead of making it permanent, and offering 4 weeks of paid family leave instead of 12. An attempt to lower the price tag from $3.5 trillion to a range closer to $2 trillion.
We're still putting together all the different pieces of it. And, you know, it could be anywhere between 1.9, 2.2.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi insists negotiations over the budget bill and which key social programs are in or out are far from done. The president is pushing Democrats to agree to a framework for the package and to pass the separate roughly $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill by the end of next week, when he departs for an international trip. But there are still questions about how to pay for the plan and how to include key provisions to fight climate change amid opposition from moderate Senator Joe Manchin.
Never been involved in a major legislative undertaking that didn't require compromise.
Our thanks to Elizabeth. And now to a story of black magic and murder. A husband arrested for allegedly killing his wife and leaving their 3 children motherless. Authorities say he didn't want to grant her a divorce. ABC's Matt Gutman has the details for us from Los Angeles.
9 months after mother of 3, May Millette, disappeared, a SWAT team bursting into her home to arrest her husband for murder. Police in Southern California say May wanted to divorce her husband, but he tried to hold on to her by repeatedly enlisting a spellcaster to curse her with black magic.
He was asking for May to become incapacitated, for May to be in an accident, to have broken bones so that she could stay at home.
May went missing on January 7th, the same day prosecutors say she contacted a divorce lawyer. Their investigation concluding that Larry Millette murdered his wife to avoid granting a possible divorce.
Today is a step towards justice, but it does not mark the end of our investigation.
May's husband charged with 1 count of felony murder and a 2nd charge for illegal possession of an assault weapon. He's being held without bail, but prosecutors now asking for the public's help in finding May's remains.
This is why I am giving this information so the public understands that we do not have a vicinity where the body may be.
The Chula Vista Police Department named the 40-year-old father of May's children a person of interest in July after speaking with 87 people, issuing 66 search warrants, and looking into more than 128 tips about her disappearance. Her sister, Marie Chris Drolet, was one of the people saying that her husband went to extreme lengths, begging the family to intervene in their marriage. I spoke to them 3 months into the search, and even then, Marie Chris and her husband Richard had their suspicions about Larry.
For the last year, they've been really having marital issues, and he is the one that's been trying to work it out with my sister.
May's family had been fighting for a chance to see her and Larry's kids after he cut off contact with them following her disappearance. They're now pleading for Larry to tell them everything he knows about what happened to her.
Let the kids know where their mommy is at. Let them know the truth.
Just a heartbreaking story there. Our thanks to Matt. One of the greatest shows in Las Vegas is now taking a pause because the star of the show has health issues. Celine Dion, who was already prepping for her big return, now says she is heartbroken. ABC's Deb Roberts brings us this report.
The news, no doubt, a crushing disappointment to fans of the international music superstar. A press release announcing Celine Dion's big return to the Vegas Strip
currently on hold due to unforeseen medical symptoms, adding Celine has been experiencing severe and persistent muscle spasms, which are preventing her from performing. Dion, who was set to open at the resort's World Theater in less than 3 weeks, tweeting, "I'm heartbroken by this. My team and I have been working on our new show for the past 8 months, and to not be able to open this November saddens me beyond words. Now I have to focus on getting better. I want to get through this as soon as I can." A theater press release saying her medical team continues to evaluate and treat her. However, the symptoms she's experiencing are prohibiting her from participating in the ongoing rehearsals for the new show. Dion is one of the best-selling music artists of all time, a 5-time Grammy Award winner with album sales soaring above 250 million. The 53-year-old regularly producing hit after hit, with chart toppers like My Heart Will Go On, All by Myself, and That's the Way It Is. When I sat down with Celine in Vegas before her departure from Caesars in 2019, she was energized.
I feel so powerful and in charge and grounded and happy.
It radiates. It radiates. I see the
I can
happiness.
say more. I can say more.
What's your secret these days to staying healthy and fit and happy?
Don't need to prove myself to the industry, to my family, to my friends, because I think I've done it for many years. I do it because my passion has grown through the years, and now I do it because I have so much fun.
You can hear and feel her passion as she talks. Our thanks to Deborah Roberts for bringing us that. Still to come, would you eat Chipotle for 50 straight days? Well, someone did and lived to tell the tale. We'll tell you all about it coming up.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people
squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you?
Can I hug you?
Yes.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 12 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show. Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, What You Need to Know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
This is American history, a violent white mob, a brutal attack, 300 Black Americans killed right here in America. Now, it is time to uncover Tulsa's buried truth, the gripping story brought to light in a new podcast from ABC News, available now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
Sex, gambling, fraud, betrayal, and murder. Cutthroat Inc., the podcast. A family on a mission to find their son. A year's worth of conversations with the killer. Cutthroat Inc. Subscribe for free now on your favorite podcast app. Assault on the Capitol, the ABC News original, exclusively on Hulu, now streaming. Now with so much on the line, more Americans are turning to David Muir and ABC's World News Tonight than any other program across all of television.
Welcome back. We are tracking several international headlines at this hour. At least 43 people have died and another 30 are missing after 3 days of heavy rainfall triggered landslides and flash floods in Nepal. Flash floods and landslides are actually common in Nepal during the monsoon season that normally lasts from mid-June through September every year. Authorities have warned of even more rainfall in the next few days. New video out today shows riot police retaking control of the Guatemalan Congress after military veterans invaded it. Veterans behind the uproar, which happened yesterday, were demanding financial compensation for their service. Congressional workers escaped through the roof to avoid being attacked by the protesters. Royal repose. Queen Elizabeth canceled a trip to Northern Ireland after she was given medical advice to rest. The 95-year-old had a series of events scheduled tonight and, despite her reluctance, decided to oblige and stay at Buckingham Palace. We now turn to a space travel trailblazer who paved the way for women in STEM. Back in 1995, NASA astronaut and United States Air Force Colonel Eileen Collins made history as the first female commander and first woman to pilot a space shuttle. In her new book, Through the Glass Ceiling to the Stars, the story of the first American woman to command a space mission, she gives us insight into what it was like going above and beyond. Colonel Collins, kind enough to join us now. And Colonel, you retired roughly 15 years ago. What made you decide that right now was the time to write your memoir?
Well, to be honest with you, when the pandemic hit, I had a lot more free time. I normally in my job, I travel, I'm a speaker. And when everything shut down back in March of 2020, I was contacted by my co-author, Jonathan Ward, who said, I think now is the time. So we decided to start writing. And I think that was the reason. But over the years, people have been asking me, where's your book? Where's your book? And so I'm not a writer, but I managed to get it done, and it was digging up a lot of the past. It was doing a lot of research. I wanted to make sure everything in the book was exactly correct. I'm not embellishing on any of the stories. Everything in that book is exactly what happened because of all the research we've done over the last year and a half. And I'm happy to say, for those who have been asking for the book, it's finally out.
Something positive to come out of the pandemic. Yep. Take us back to that February day in 1995 when you got in the pilot seat of the space shuttle and then catapulted into the universe. Give us a sense of what that moment was like.
Well, of course, I was very excited about being my first space flight. So personally, for me, it was a dream come true. But when reality sets in, I'm the pilot of the space shuttle. I'm the first woman to pilot the space shuttle. My aviator friends, especially the women, who were saying, Eileen, get out there and do it for us. So there was a lot of pressure on me to not make a mistake. And I didn't want to make a mistake on the flight and have people say, oh, look at the woman made a mistake. So, put a lot of that pressure on myself. So I had to put aside the fact that, oh, yes, I am the first woman piloting the space shuttle, and instead just say, Eileen, you have to be the best pilot you can possibly be. That doesn't just include the flying skills, but includes all the procedures, all the responsibilities that I had as a pilot. And back in those days, a lot of the work we did, it was manual. I mean, we were actually throwing the switches and running the procedures. Today, most of spaceflight is being automated and run by computers. But back in the shuttle days, we actually flew the shuttle like you would fly an airplane during the rendezvous.
I did want to ask you about that because you were just talking about kind of back in the day how it was all manual and now it's all automated. What is your take on the billionaire space race and this new fleet, basically, of spaceships that are going up? Some of them don't have any switches at all.
Well, so that's true. So the Blue Origin flight that we've seen, the recent flight with William Shatner and then Wally Funk last summer, those are fully automated. And they've been tested and tested over again, but they're really designed for the people who fly to enjoy themselves. They don't have to work. They don't have to train that much. They are flying to enjoy themselves. I'm fully in support of that. I think the purpose of those flights are to get more people in space. Now, if you look at the Virgin Galactic flights, which Richard Branson flew back in, I believe it was June of 2021, those have two pilots. So those are actually flown by, so there's a little bit of difference between the two. And then the SpaceX, of course, is the other company that is doing private space flight. They actually go into orbit, and they're very, very automated. I think they still have some interaction that they need with the crew. But spaceflight is changing, and I think more and more people will be able to fly because there is more automation, there's less training required. And I mean, you can sign up for those flights, you know, pay the cost of a ticket and go fly. And now you've seen the earth from above, you've seen the curvature of the earth, you've seen the beauty of the earth, and you just have a feeling that you want to take care of the planet even more. So I think it's a good thing to get more people in space.
And if you have $250 million, you can do that. In the book, though, just want to turn back to that for a moment, because you do get really personal about your childhood, and you're extremely vulnerable when talking about the obstacles of growing up with an alcoholic father and a struggling single mother. How did those life lessons help to fuel your drive to become an astronaut?
Well, I think, you know, part of my childhood, it really goes back to the independence that I had to have growing up. When there was a time when both my parents were away in the hospital. We ran about 4 weeks or so, and I was in charge of the house. You know, I had to get my younger brother and sister to school, cook the meals, you know, make sure everything was running fine. I'm not sure it was legal. I was 17 years old. But I think, you know, and my mother was also very independent. And I think I learned quite a bit from my parents. In fact, I dedicated the book to my parents. And my message to parents out there is you don't have to be a perfect parent. Every parent has, you know, issues. We're not all perfect. But the important thing is that your kids know that you love them and that you support them in whatever they want to do. And my parents supported me in what I wanted to do. So I dedicated the book to them, even though they had their own struggles in life.
And we all certainly do. Eileen Collins, retired NASA astronaut and author, Through the Glass Ceiling to the Stars. We thank you so much for your leadership and your time.
Thank you.
Finally tonight, the burrito trio eating their way across America, one Chipotle at a time. Will Gans introduces us to the TikTok creators who ate Chipotle in all 50 states in just 50 days. And yes, they did hit a wall, but kept right on going.
All right, this is day one of eating Chipotle in every state.
Wyatt Moss really likes Chipotle.
Yesterday, I ate Chipotle for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
He also has an appetite for taking on challenges that will guac your world.
We're here at the first Chipotle location in Denver, Colorado.
Wyatt convincing his best friends to join him on a cross-country road trip, eating Chipotle in all 50 states, all in 50 days.
I think 43 states have a Chipotle location, so the states that didn't have it, we would drive like an extra 3 hours or so, pick it up in the state below and drive up, and then eat it at like monuments.
Wyatt taking a gap year from college, using money from his woodworking business to help cover costs, and the boys also scoring a sponsorship from gas station chain Racetrack. For most of their meals, the guys split the order of 3 tacos. Wyatt says that was the most cost-effective ordering strategy.
We ate tacos like 90, 80% of the time, and then burritos the other 20%.
Did you ever like hit the wall where it was like, no more tacos, like I'm done?
I'm really hard-headed. John is also really hard-headed, but after like 2 weeks, he's like, Wyatt, do we have to do this? And I'm like, John, like, dude, we're already 2 weeks in. We can't just give up.
So the taco trio kept driving and driving, sleeping in the car at night, showering at gyms along the route, until finally they flew up to Alaska and then to Hawaii to wrap up their cross-country journey.
It's been 18,000 miles of driving, over 300 hours. We've gone to all 50 states in 50 days.
Who even knew there was a Chipotle in Hawaii? Will Gans, our thanks to you for that. That is our show for tonight. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Have a great night.
It was an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed